Every man wants to understand women, but few realize that the key lies in mastering her vulnerabilities. These are not flaws. They are the gateways to her trust, her love, and her devotion. If you ignore them, you create distance. But if you learn them, you unlock the deepest bond she can offer. Step 1. Her emotions rule the connection. A woman's emotions are the heartbeat of her connection in a relationship, and if a man overlooks this truth, he will always feel like something is missing no matter how much effort he puts in. Her emotions are not just fleeting moods or temporary feelings, they are the lens through which she experiences love, safety, and intimacy. When she is emotionally open, she connects with her partner on a deeper level that words alone cannot describe. But when she feels ignored or misunderstood emotionally, her walls go up, and even the strongest attraction starts to fade. Men often make the mistake of treating emotions as a problem to be fixed rather than as a reality to be understood. They assume that logic will resolve what she is expressing, but in truth, she is not always seeking solutions. She is seeking resonance, the feeling that her partner gets her and is walking beside her emotionally rather than standing apart from her. When a woman feels that her emotions are acknowledged and respected, she naturally feels closer and safer with her partner. This is why small gestures like attentive listening, validating her feelings, and being present during her vulnerable moments matter far more than grand gestures or material gifts. Her emotions drive how much she trusts, how much she invests, and how much she is willing to surrender in love. If a man becomes impatient or dismissive when she expresses herself, she interprets it as rejection, even if that wasn't his intention. The connection begins to weaken, not because of a lack of effort, but because of a lack of emotional alignment. For her, love is not built on logic. It is built on the flow of emotions between two people, and if that flow is blocked, the relationship starts to feel cold and disconnected. Understanding this does not mean a man has to become emotional in the same way she is, but it does mean he has to respect that her emotions hold weight. He must learn to create a space where she feels free to express herself without judgment or fear of being labeled as too much. This space becomes the foundation of intimacy because when she can trust a man with her emotions, she can trust him with her heart. The irony is that men often think strength means shutting down emotions, but in relationships, real strength is being steady enough to hold space for them. A man who can remain calm and grounded while his partner navigates her waves of emotions becomes the anchor she can depend on. That steadiness makes her feel secure, and that security draws her closer with every interaction. The more a man learns to understand the role of emotions in a woman's world, the more he begins to see that they are not a weakness, but the very energy that sustains the relationship. A woman who feels emotionally connected is more affectionate, more supportive, and more committed because her emotions are tied to the depth of her love. She doesn't fall in love through logic. She falls in love through the way she feels in his presence. This is why mastering her emotional world is not optional. It is the difference between surface-level attraction and lasting intimacy. Step 2, her need for security isn't just about money. A woman's need for security in a relationship goes far beyond financial stability, though many men mistakenly reduce it to just that. While providing resources and stability is important, what she truly craves is a deeper form of security, emotional, physical, and psychological. This type of security is what allows her to fully open her heart without hesitation. A woman can be in a relationship with a man who has wealth and material comfort, yet still feel insecure and unsettled if she doesn't feel emotionally safe with him. Money may build a house, but it cannot build the sense of safety that makes a woman feel at home in her partner's presence. Her vulnerability thrives not when she is given material gifts, but when she feels assured that her heart, her trust, and her emotions are protected. Emotional security is the cornerstone of what she seeks. She needs to know that when she expresses herself, her feelings won't be dismissed or mocked, but instead respected and understood. This doesn't mean a man has to agree with everything she says, but it does mean he must create an environment where her inner world feels safe to come out. When she senses that her partner can handle her emotions, her doubts, and even her fears without withdrawing or becoming defensive, she feels secure. This security allows her to be her authentic self instead of putting up a mask. Without it, she starts to hold back, question the relationship, and doubt whether she can truly lean on her partner. Emotional security is what turns a relationship into a safe haven rather than a battlefield. Physical security is another dimension that is often underestimated. A woman naturally feels more at ease when she knows her partner can protect her, not just from external threats, but from life's unpredictability. This doesn't mean she expects him to fight every battle for her, but it does mean she wants to feel that his presence brings stability and safety. The way a man carries himself, his confidence, and his ability to remain composed under pressure all contribute to how secure she feels with him. When he shows leadership and steadiness in moments of uncertainty, she relaxes because she trusts that he can handle not only himself, but also the environment around them. That sense of being protected, even without words, strengthens her connection and deepens her trust. Psychological security, often the most overlooked, is tied to her need for consistency and reliability. A woman feels deeply insecure when she cannot predict how her partner will react, whether he will be stable or volatile, consistent or confusing. What brings her peace is knowing that his actions align with his words, that his promises are not empty, and that he is someone she can rely on when it matters most. This stability allows her to invest fully without fear of being blindsided. When a man is unpredictable in destructive ways, hot and cold, loving one day and dismissive the next, he shakes the foundation of her trust. On the other hand, when his presence and actions consistently align, she feels not only secure but cherished because she knows she can count on him regardless of circumstances. Her need for security is not about being dependent or weak. It is about being able to let go of her defenses and step into her most vulnerable feminine energy. When she feels secure on every level, she doesn't hold back love, she doesn't second guess her emotions, and she doesn't live in fear of abandonment. She thrives in her softness, her nurturing, and her devotion because she knows she is anchored in something solid. A man who masters this understanding realizes that security is not something you buy with money. It is something you provide with consistency, protection, leadership, and emotional strength. Step 3, her desire to be chosen never ends. A woman's desire to be chosen is not something that fades once she enters a relationship, gets married, or builds a life with a man. It is an ongoing emotional need that stays with her throughout the connection because being chosen is tied directly to her sense of worth and value in the relationship. Many men assume that once they have committed, said, "I love you," or provided stability, the work is done. But for a woman, love is not static. It requires continuous confirmation. She wants to know that among all the options, all the distractions, and all the demands of life, she is still the one her partner prioritizes. This doesn't mean she needs grand gestures every day, but it does mean she longs for consistent reminders that she is seen, valued, and not taken for granted. When this reassurance is missing, she begins to feel invisible, unappreciated, and disconnected, even if the relationship is still intact on the surface. To be chosen is not just about words, it is about actions that reflect intention. A woman notices when her partner puts in effort, when he chooses to spend quality time with her over mindless distractions, when he makes her feel important in small but meaningful ways. She pays attention to whether he notices her presence, acknowledges her beauty, or appreciates her efforts. These little affirmations create a powerful impact because they tell her she is not just a background character in his life, but the leading role. On the other hand, when she feels ignored, neglected, or treated as though her presence is guaranteed, resentment starts to build. For her, love is not about being with someone simply out of routine. It is about being with someone who continuously affirms that he wants her, even after having her. This desire to be chosen also ties into her vulnerability because choosing her means more than physical attraction. It means emotional investment. She wants to feel that her man does not just stay because it is convenient, but because he genuinely desires her, respects her, and sees her as irreplaceable. Even small gestures like looking into her eyes when she speaks, holding her hand in public, or expressing admiration for her qualities are ways of saying, "I still choose you." These moments reassure her heart that she is not forgotten in the chaos of daily life. Without these affirmations, she can begin to question her importance, leading her to withdraw emotionally or feel unloved, even if her partner still cares deep down. At its core, her desire to be chosen never ends because it is woven into her feminine nature. She is a being of emotion, connection, and devotion, and her deepest fulfillment comes from knowing that her man values her presence above all. When she feels chosen, she gives back more love, more loyalty, and more support because she feels secure in her place in his heart. This is not about being needy, but about being reassured that the bond is alive and not taken for granted. A man who understands this truth realizes that choosing his woman is not a one-time act, but a daily decision, a continuous expression of love that keeps the relationship thriving and unbreakable. Step 4, her sensitivity to rejection runs deep. A woman's sensitivity to rejection runs much deeper than most men realize, and it is not limited to the big moments like breakups or harsh criticism. It is often the subtle forms of rejection, the dismissive tone, the lack of attention, the absence of acknowledgement that cut the deepest. For a woman, rejection touches the core of her emotional world because her heart is wired to seek connection, affirmation, and belonging. When she feels unwanted or overlooked, it doesn't just register as a passing disappointment. It shakes her sense of worth and security in the relationship. Men may think they are being neutral or logical when they shut down emotionally, but to her, that withdrawal feels like abandonment. Even the smallest signs of neglect can feel magnified because her emotions interpret them as disconnection from the man she trusts. This deep sensitivity is rooted in her nature to give and to nurture. When a woman invests her emotions, her time, and her heart, she opens herself to vulnerability. Rejection in that state of openness feels like a wound because it confirms her fear of not being valued. A casual comment that dismisses her feelings, a distracted look when she wants to be heard, or a lack of interest when she seeks affection. All of these register as forms of rejection. While a man may brush them off as minor or unintentional, she feels them intensely. Her emotional memory holds on to these moments, which is why repeated experiences of rejection, even subtle ones, can build walls between her and her partner. Over time, this creates a distance that cannot be bridged by logic alone, because the wound is not intellectual, it is emotional. A man who understands this depth realizes that rejection is not always about saying no directly, but about how his actions or lack of presence are perceived by her. Emotional neglect is often the sharpest form of rejection in her world. When she feels her efforts go unnoticed or her presence is undervalued, she internalizes it as not being enough. This is why reassurance and acknowledgement play such a vital role in sustaining her sense of connection. It is not about constant praise or overindulgence, but about consistently showing her that she matters, that her emotions are valid, and that her place in his life is secure. A simple gesture of attention at the right time can erase feelings of rejection, while consistent dismissal can leave scars that linger for years. Her sensitivity to rejection is not a weakness, it is part of her emotional design. It makes her attuned to the dynamics of the relationship, aware of shifts in energy, and responsive to the presence or absence of connection. When she feels accepted, wanted, and chosen, she flourishes in love, becoming more giving and more devoted. But when she feels rejected, even in subtle ways, she retreats into self-protection, building walls to shield herself from further pain. A man who seeks a deep, lasting connection must learn to navigate this sensitivity with care, not by walking on eggshells, but by being intentional with his words, his presence, and his actions. When he provides consistent reassurance and demonstrates that she is valued, he becomes the safe space she craves, and her sensitivity becomes a bridge to deeper intimacy instead of a barrier. Step 5, her subconscious tests, are about certainty. A woman's subconscious tests are rarely about the surface level issue that seems to spark them. They are rooted in her deeper need for certainty. These tests are not deliberate games she plays to frustrate her partner, but expressions of her inner desire to know if the man she is with is steady, dependable, and capable of holding his ground when faced with pressure. When a woman challenges a man, whether through questions, emotional outbursts, or moments of doubt, she is often looking beyond the words and actions to see if he wavers or stands firm. Her tests are not about seeking perfection, but about seeking consistency. They help her gauge whether the man she trusts can truly provide the stability her heart craves, because without certainty, her emotions cannot fully relax into the connection. These tests can appear in subtle ways, such as questioning his decisions, expressing insecurities, or creating small moments of conflict. On the surface, they may seem irrational, but at the core, they are a way of measuring his strength and leadership. A woman does not want a man who folds under pressure or avoids discomfort. She wants someone who can remain calm, grounded, and certain, even when she is emotional or uncertain herself. When a man reacts with defensiveness, anger, or withdrawal, she interprets it as instability, which triggers more doubt in her mind. But when he responds with calm assurance, patience, and clarity, she feels reassured and safe. In these moments, her subconscious test is satisfied because what she is truly looking for is a man whose certainty does not crumble under the weight of her emotions. It is important to understand that these tests are not about manipulation. They are woven into her emotional nature as a way of protecting herself from investing in someone who cannot provide the security she needs. Just as a man might test the strength of a foundation before building on it, a woman tests the strength of her partner before giving him her deepest trust. When she sees that he can remain centered and unshaken, her heart naturally surrenders more fully. This is why a man who views these moments as battles to win misses the point, because they are not about winning or losing. They are about showing that he is consistent, reliable, and strong enough to lead without being controlling. The more a man learns to embrace her subconscious tests as opportunities rather than threats, the more he begins to understand her deeper psychology. She is not searching for perfection in him, but for evidence that his words align with his actions, and that his presence remains steady no matter what emotional storm she brings. When he passes these tests, not through arrogance, but through composure, he earns her respect and her devotion. Her need for certainty is not about power, it is about peace. She wants to know that she can lean on him, that his character will not shift with circumstance, and that his love is not conditional. A woman may never verbalize these tests, but she feels the answers deeply. And when she finds certainty in her man, she gives her trust without hesitation. Step 6. Her vulnerability thrives in leadership. A woman's vulnerability is not something she shows to everyone. It only comes alive in the presence of a man who demonstrates true leadership. Leadership in a relationship is not about control, domination, or making every decision without her input. It is about embodying stability, direction, and the confidence to guide without stripping her of her independence. When a man leads with clarity and strength, he creates an atmosphere where a woman feels safe enough to let down her guard. Her softness, her nurturing, and her willingness to trust flow naturally when she senses that he knows where he is going and that he is capable of protecting not just himself, but the relationship as well. Without leadership, her vulnerability retreats into self-protection, and instead of opening up, she builds walls to shield herself from uncertainty. This form of leadership is shown through consistency and decisiveness. A man who avoids responsibility, who hesitates at every step, or who expects her to take charge in areas where he should be steady, unknowingly forces her into a masculine role that drains her. While she may be capable of leading herself, what her heart truly craves in a relationship is the freedom to rest in her feminine energy, which can only happen when she feels she doesn't have to carry the full weight of direction and protection. When a man shows that he can take initiative, solve problems with confidence, and remain calm under pressure, she feels a deep sense of relief. That relief allows her to relax, to trust, and to reveal the most tender parts of herself without fear of being hurt or abandoned. Her vulnerability thrives when leadership is paired with empathy and strength. If leadership is only about dominance, she resists it because it feels oppressive rather than safe. True leadership listens, understands, and then guides with wisdom. A man who can hear her emotions without being swept away by them, and who can provide guidance without dismissing her voice, strikes the balance she longs for. In his presence, she can express her fears and insecurities without shame, because she knows he will not weaponize them against her. Instead, his leadership becomes the structure that holds her vulnerability, making her feel cherished rather than exposed. This dynamic transforms the relationship from a partnership of constant friction into one where she naturally gravitates toward deeper intimacy. When a woman feels that her man leads with vision and certainty, she instinctively trusts him more. She does not need to second-guess his actions or question his reliability because his leadership consistently reassures her that she is safe. This assurance allows her to give her devotion freely, to support him fully, and to lean into her most feminine qualities without reservation. Vulnerability, after all, is an act of trust, and trust is only given when she feels there is a strong container to hold it. The stronger his leadership, the more her vulnerability blooms, and the more her love deepens. She does not want to control or compete. She wants to feel that her softness is valued, protected, and encouraged by a man who understands that leadership is not about superiority, but about responsibility. Gentlemen, understand this. When you learn to master a woman's vulnerabilities, you're not exploiting her. You're protecting the very parts of her that make love real and powerful. Her emotions, her need for security, her longing to be chosen, her sensitivity to rejection, her subconscious tests, and her vulnerability in the presence of leadership. These are not weaknesses. They are her truth. And when you can step up with strength, certainty, and emotional depth, you don't just win her heart for a moment, you earn her trust for a lifetime. This is the difference between a relationship that merely survives and one that truly thrives.